Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I mentioned last night that sometime this week I was going to talk about the AP poll, and it'd probably be tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is now today, so I'm going to talk some college football AP poll because tomorrow night we'll see the new playoff poll. And generally, so far this season, just about every week, the AP poll has about the same teams ranked as the playoff poll, just a little different order. So I like to compare the two. Hey there, Marcus. Glad you've tuned in. I am doing fantastic as always. Thank you for asking. Hey there, Daniel. Glad to have y'all here. Y'all make sure y'all give the video a like and a thumbs up. Share the video on all social media platforms if you have not yet subscribed. Please do so. It takes about 2 seconds and helps the channel out tremendously. Now, after I get done giving the AP Top 25, I've got a few questions about this weekend just out of curiosity. I kind of referenced some of these in the video that I did Saturday night talking about all the games. So I'm going to talk about that more in depth coming up here after we do the AP Top 25. But of course, Oregon is still number one team, followed by Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame. Georgia, Tennessee, Miami, SMU, and Indiana round out the top 10. 11 through 15, we have Boise State, Clemson, Alabama, Arizona State, and Ole Miss. South Carolina, Iowa State, Tulane, BYU, and Texas A&M, 16 through 20. UNLV, Illinois, Colorado, Missouri, and Army round out the top 25. Hey there, Peter. Glad to have you here. Now, you notice that Alabama is number 13, and I referenced teams like Alabama numerous times here on the channel when I talked about, the playoffs going to 12 teams was not going to be good because there were going to be some teams that are going to get the benefit of the doubt and that are going to make the playoffs with 3 and 4 losses, and it's not fair to everybody else because college football, especially now that the players are getting paid and people now that associate with both say that the college game and the NFL game now pretty much coach the same way, play the same way. There's no difference. You can tell now with every single time the NFL changes a rule, college football changes the same rule. Just like this year, they had the 2-minute warning, which the NFL's had forever. Don't be surprised to see college football adopt the new NFL kickoff rule in the next couple of years. Hey there, gaming bosses. Thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate it. So with that being said, college football should be just like the NFL. The NFL, when the season ends, you don't see one team go 10-7 and the other team go 9-8. The NFL say, well, that 9-8 team, they play in a tougher division, so let's give them the wild card. No, the team that goes 10-7 gets the wild card. Why? Because they won more games. So winning should matter. If you're gonna put a 3-loss team in the playoffs or a 4-loss team in the playoffs, then what's the point in playing the games? The other teams are winning and getting left out, and the team that loses doesn't get punished for losing. That's dumb. And I bring that up because I said that Alabama is one of the teams that I feel like could go 9-3 or 8-4, and they'll still get in the playoffs. And they got embarrassed Saturday by an average at best team, and they fall to 13-6 in the playoff poll or AP poll, which means if one team above them loses, they're right back in the top 12. And Peter, you can stop asking me those kind of questions. I try not to talk about things like that here on this channel. I try to strictly talk sports and entertainment stuff. I don't bring up politics and news items and things like that. Hey there, West Coast Buckeye. Glad to have you here. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make. And I've said that for 2 years here on the channel about the playoffs, shouldn't expand because there's too many teams that are going to get in the playoffs just because of their name. I am great, Midnight Society. Thank you for asking. And I don't think it's fair because in every other sport, winning matters. And college football now wants to be treated like the NFL, and the NFL, winning matters. So in college football, winning should matter. If winning doesn't matter, why keep score? Just send two teams out there and say, hey, y'all go play and have fun. Act like we're middle schoolers. Go out there, play, have fun. Don't keep score. Don't worry about it. Just don't get hurt. Don't get mad. Don't keep score. What's the point in keeping score if a team like Bama loses, and not only loses, but gets destroyed, and they still go to the playoffs? It's just not right. And I'm sick and tired of hearing about, well, they're playing a tough conference. First of all, that's the biggest bunch of hogwash I ever heard in my life. And second of all, I understand if Bama loses 3 games and they lose to Georgia, Texas, Tennessee. I get that. But you lost to Vanderbilt and you lost to Oklahoma. So you can't even use the excuse that your conference is good when you're losing to the teams that suck. It's one thing to lose to good teams, but they're losing to teams that suck. One thing I'm looking forward to is to see the southern teams play up north in the winter. And I think that'll be a good thing, but I just don't know how much of that we'll actually see because we'll have to wait until the actual 12-team playoff field is officially set to find out who goes where in order to find out, how many teams down south that you'll see playing up north. Plus, this time of the year, the way the weather is, there's a chance that, they'll go to a city that most years is cold and snowy, and this year, it just ain't. I know in my neck of the woods, it's usually pretty cold by this time of the year, and this year it's almost December, and we've had 3 or 4 cold days, but nothing like, we normally see. So there's been some weird weather this time of the year. So there's a chance that a southern team might go up north to a city that normally has snow and is normally really cold, and it's just not cold this year. Hey there, Mario. Glad to have you here. You can bench press 135. Well, congratulations. I'm happy for you. Maybe one day you can start bench pressing 435. But we'll find out tomorrow night when the playoff poll comes out how far Bama falls. But I have a feeling it's going to be just like the AP poll. I think they'll fall, but I think they'll fall to 14 or 15. But a few of the questions that I have is, let's just say Texas A&M beats Texas. Let's say that Vanderbilt beats Tennessee. Let's say that Syracuse beats Miami. Auburn beats Alabama. USC beats Notre Dame. South Carolina beats Clemson. I think if Clemson wins, I think they're pretty much in the playoffs. Let's say Georgia Tech beats Georgia. Maryland beats Penn State. Hey there, little pest control. Glad to have you here. Give me 1 second. Let me unlock the door for my beautiful wife. You saw 15 transgenders in 2 hours watching lives. Please help me. I think you are my only hope. Well, little pest control, no chance and no danger of seeing that here. But anyway, all those things aren't going to happen. But with the way this college football season's been so far, there's a chance that two or three of those things could happen. And I mentioned on Saturday that as long as my team isn't involved in absolute mayhem, I'm a fan of mayhem, and I would like to see all of those things happen except for South Carolina beating Clemson. But South Carolina probably has the best defensive line in the country. If not, they're definitely top three or top four. And right now, Clemson has a makeshift offensive line. They're struggling to five linemen to put on the field. So I think South Carolina's defensive front is going to destroy Clemson on Saturday. So it wouldn't surprise me to see South Carolina beat Clemson. But of course, I'm hoping they don't. But it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But outside of that, I hope every other thing happens because I'm just curious what they would do if that happens. Now, if Auburn beats Alabama, it'll be Bama's fourth loss. There's no way they get in with four losses. But with three, there's definitely a chance. But, Notre Dame is sitting right now in the AP poll at number 5. So even if they lose to USC, I don't think they're going to fall out of the top 12. And if Texas A&M beats Texas, I don't think Texas falls out of the top 12. But I don't think Texas would play for the conference championship game. I think if A&M beats them, A&M plays Georgia. So even if A&M beats Texas, I think Texas still gets in, but I'd be curious to see exactly how far they would fall. But as I said on Saturday, I think Oregon and Ohio State are in the playoffs regardless of what happens this weekend. I don't think it matters. But outside of Oregon and Ohio State, the other 10 teams, I'm really not sure about. The way the Gamecocks have played the last 6 weeks, if they beat Clemson and a few teams above them lose, I could see the Gamecocks getting a playoff spot. Don't know that they would. They shouldn't, even though they've been the best team in the SEC for the past month. But they've got 3 losses. And they've got 3 losses to some not so good football teams. You think the sleeper in all this playoff scene is SMU. Hey there, Jalen. Glad to have you here again. And actually, Jalen, before the season started, sometime I would say in August, I was talking college football. I forget what the exact topic was that day, but it was college football. And in that video that day, I said, watch out for SMU. They've got a chance to surprise some teams this year. And I think I even said they'd win 8 or 9 games. So I warned the people that watched that video that they were going to be good, but I didn't think they were going to be this good. Now, can they win the conference championship? I don't know. But for them just to get there, I think is a really, really, really good thing. And they've already clinched their spot. They're there. But if Syracuse does beat Miami, which might happen because Syracuse, their quarterback, if he's on, he could have 500 passing yards against that awful Hurricane defense. But if Syracuse beats Miami, then the ACC championship game is Clemson and SMU. But if Miami beats Syracuse, then it's Miami and SMU. So the ACC right now has 3 teams in the top 15. I don't think all 3 teams make the playoffs, but, it could happen. But if Vanderbilt beats Tennessee, I think Tennessee is out. But, Vanderbilt's only an average team, but for them, a 6 or 7 win season is a pretty good season. But, Tennessee's passing game this year has had some games where it just, might as well not even showed up. They've been better off just running the ball every single play. And if they have one of those games against Vandy where they struggle to have 100 passing yards, Vanderbilt might hang with them, and you just never know how the fourth quarter could pan out. And Hugh Freeze, always coaches his best games against highly ranked teams. So it's not going to surprise me at all to see Auburn hang with Alabama. I just don't know if they'll beat Alabama. But Alabama is the most Jekyll and Hyde team you've ever seen. They be the football version of being bipolar because you just don't ever know what team you're going to see. If the Bama team that showed up in the first half against Georgia shows up, they'll destroy Auburn. It won't be close. It'll be over by the time the first quarter ends. But if the Bama team that showed up Saturday against Oklahoma shows up against Auburn, Auburn might win that game. Hey there, Rob. Glad to have you here. But I would love to see Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Tennessee, Miami, SMU, Indiana, and Boise State all lose just to see what they would do. And I am really, truly, speaking of Boise State, curious to see if they're automatically in or if they lose, does Tulane or Memphis, whoever's behind them, get in? Because everybody thinks it's, the four power conference champions plus the highest ranked group of five team, which right now is Boise State. Yes, Rob, we are talking some college football. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the rules right in front of me, but if I'm not mistaken, that's not necessarily true. I believe it is the four highest ranked conference champions that get automatic bids. And if I'm correct, Boise State right now is ranked higher than the Big 12 leader, which the Big 12 has a chance of having a 9-way tie. But Arizona State is sitting at 14. So let's just say Arizona State wins the Big 12. If Boise State finishes ahead of Arizona State, and the rules are it's the four highest ranked conference champions, even though Boise State is a group of five team, if they finish higher than Arizona State, I believe that means Boise State's in, and the Big 12 is just left out unless they get an at-large bid, which could happen. But I believe the rule is it's the four highest ranked conference champions. And everybody just assumes the four highest ranked conference champions are going to be the Power Four conferences. But right now, Boise State's ranked higher than Arizona State, who has a chance to win the Big 12. So if I'm not mistaken, that's the rule, and the rule is the four highest ranked conference champions. If that's the case, then Arizona State or Iowa State or whoever wins the Big 12 might not get in at all. The playoffs seem like it's made to put a lot of Big Ten SEC teams in it. It is, and Jalen, I hate it because it's not fair to everybody else because it comes across as if you play in the SEC or the Big Ten, as long as you win 9 games, you're in the playoffs. And that's not fair because it comes across as they're telling you, we don't care if you win or lose. You can lose. If you play in one of those two conferences, your schedule means so much. Even if you lose, you're getting in. And that shouldn't be the way it is. There's no point in playing the games if winning doesn't matter. I actually said a few minutes ago here in this video that if you're going to be that way, treat it like middle school football. Just tell the teams, we're not going to keep score. Just go out there, have fun. Who wins and loses, don't matter. Don't worry about it. Don't keep score. Don't keep track of stats. Just go out there, try to stay healthy, try to not get hurt, have fun. Don't keep score. Because you're telling these teams like Alabama, hey, even if you lose, you're getting in. Doesn't matter. And in every other sport, who makes the playoffs is the team that has the better record. And college football should be the same way. A team shouldn't make the playoffs because they're 9-3 when another team goes 11-1 because you play in a certain conference. Wins and losses matter. If you're 9-3, another team goes 11-1, the 11-1 team should be in the playoffs. No questions asked, no ifs, ands, or buts. It shouldn't be complicated. Wins and losses shouldn't matter. You win more games. You should finish higher ranked. You should be in the playoffs. To me, it's not very complicated, but they make it complicated. But Dabo Swinney actually did an interview on Saturday, and during the interview, Dabo Swinney even said, it's the Big Ten SEC Invitational. And everybody knows that, and it sucks, but that's just the way it is. Because what's happening is the Big Ten and the SEC are going to eventually break away from the NCAA. I don't know what they'll call their division or conference or whatever, but it won't be the NCAA. It'll be something completely separate. And what's going to happen is they're going to split away, and it'll be just like the NFL. The Big Ten will be the AFC, the SEC will be the NFC, or vice versa. And they'll play their regular season, and then when the season ends, there'll be probably 6 teams in the SEC and 6 teams in the Big Ten that go to the playoffs, just like the NFL. And then the ACC and the Big 12 and the Pac 12, whatever it's called, and the Mountain West and Conference USA and every other conference, they'll have their own separate playoffs. So you'll have a Big Ten, SEC, whatever they call their league, national champion, and then you'll have an NCAA champion with all the other teams. And then when that happens, if the NCAA still has a 12-team playoff, I guess then they'll start going by wins and losses, because you can't credit a team and put them in the playoffs just because they're in the Big Ten or the SEC, because those two conferences are no longer there. That's going to happen sooner rather than later. I mean, it's not going to be next year, but I'd say by 2030, that's what's going to happen. You're going to see the Big Ten probably by that time be up to 20 or 22 teams, and the SEC will probably be about the same amount. They'll split off and they'll have 40 teams or 44 teams, and they'll have a national champion, and every other conference will have a national champion. So it'll be just like now, where you have the Division One national champion, the Division One AA national champion, the Division Two national champion, and the Division Three national champion. But then you'll have two Division One national champions. It's going to be complicated, but that's what's going to happen. And the NCAA is helping that get here even faster by showing everybody else that those two conferences are the only two conferences that matter. If you don't play there, you don't matter. And it's funny because the ACC has won 3 of the last 10 national championships. The Big Ten has only won, I believe, 2 of the last 10 national championships. But still, the Big Ten gets talked about more and gets more praise than the ACC does. If I'm not mistaken, the ACC's won 3 of the last 10, and the Big Ten has won 2 of the last 10. But yet, it's still all about the Big Ten. So I'm all for chaos this weekend. And conference championships will go away. I don't know when, but Lane Kiffin came out last week and said, you don't want to play in your conference championship. Hey there, Gator fan, glad to have you here, because it's going to hurt you in the long run if you're, sitting at 10 or 11 and you lose your conference championship. So even though most coaches and players won't come out and say it, coaches and players don't want to play for their conference championship unless they're already, sitting at 1 or 2, then it don't matter. But outside of that, you don't want to play for it because it's going to hurt you. You'd rather just miss it. And a lot of people think that's why Ole Miss lost on Saturday, because Lane Kiffin's focused on trying to figure out how to avoid playing for the conference championship and didn't prepare for playing the game. So I think conference championships will go away. I just don't know when. And it's funny because people have complained for years about Notre Dame, how they should be in a conference. But then Lane Kiffin comes out and says, basically in a roundabout way, without saying it verbatim, says that, conference championships are a bad thing. So why should Notre Dame join a conference and play for a conference championship when you've got football coaches that are saying playing for a conference championship is a bad thing? So Notre Dame is doing the right thing by not having to play for a conference championship. And one last thing I wanted to discuss, and I'm not actually trying to attack them and going at them, but it's been a huge topic this year in college football, so I wanted to bring it up, and that is officiating. Now, I'm not one of those people that says, "Oh, they're out to get my team." That's hogwash. Any fan that thinks the referee's out for their team is an idiot. That's not true. The referees ain't out to get no team. They don't give 2 cents who wins and loses. They're just not any good. And it sucks because the SEC, who claims it just means more, which to this day, I still have no idea what that means. What means more? Losing means more, winning means more, wearing ugly uniforms means more. I have no idea what it's supposed to mean more of. Still don't know what that means. But obviously, it don't mean officiate means more because even though the officials across the board are terrible, and the SEC, they're the worst. That'd be a nice matchup, Notre Dame versus Ole Miss. Yes, it would be. And Ole Miss has played pretty good against ranked teams, but they've played awful against unranked teams. So that would mean Ole Miss would play really good against Notre Dame. And I actually think Notre Dame's got a pretty good team this year, so that would be a really good game. But the officials across the board are bad, but the officials in the SEC are the worst, which tells you that having good referees don't matter. It don't mean more because they're terrible. But I think that the reviews that they have now in football have made the officials worse. And what I mean by that is if you have a bang bang play, like say a player fumbles, and from the live view, you think he fumbled, but you're not sure. Well, officials are taught to not blow the whistle, let the play finish, let the play out, and then go back and review it. Hey there, Troy. Glad to have you here. And you can tell me about Matt Dillon if you do so choose. You can type it up in the comment section. So they sit back and they let the play finish, and then the other team recovers the fumble. They pick it up, run it back for a touchdown. Well, let's just say that upstairs they decided that it wasn't worth reviewing. Let's just keep playing. Well, then the refs get blamed for that, for not blowing the whistle, even though they're taught to not blow the whistle, let the play finish. And then we also have targeting now, and you have 27 different ways that targeting can be targeting. That's complicated. And I can recall almost 30 years ago when I started watching football, when if somebody caught the ball, they caught the ball. Well, they've changed the rules so much to where now I've seen guys catch a ball where I clearly thought it wasn't close. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was a catch. And then they'll review it and say it wasn't a catch. And why can't a catch just be a catch? Ever since Calvin Johnson played for the Detroit Lions years ago and made that one dumb thing he did in the end zone, ever since that happened, they have changed the rules 17 times on what a catch is. If somebody catches the ball, it's a catch. If they don't catch a ball, it's not a catch. And they have just put so many rules in football now to where it's impossible for the referees to know what to call and what not to call because it's all judgment calls. It's all opinionated. So now with so many rules, you can have 9 referees watch the play and 5 feel this way and 4 feel this way. But if you had fewer rules, it wouldn't be a debatable topic. If that would be the rule, you go by that rule. But when you have so many rules and so many things are subjective and opinion based, it's hard for everybody to be on the same page. And I think reviewing has made it worse because now they feel like they're under more scrutiny because they have to go back and watch all those replays and get it right. And the whole time they're watching the replays, everybody at home is watching the same replay, so you're seeing the same thing they're seeing. So they feel like they're under more pressure. But what hurts is college football now is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they won't get full-time officials. If you would get full-time officials, it would help out tremendously. Now, they don't give a darn who wins and loses. The referees ain't out for no team. If they miss a call, they just missed it. They didn't miss it because it's your team. That's garbage. They just missed a call. But these officials, they want to do a good job because at the end of the season, before the playoffs start, they go back and grade and judge every single officiating crew. And the officiating crews that are determined to have done the best job are the ones that officiate the playoff games. So they want to do a good job because they want to officiate the playoff games. So they're not out there intentionally messing up. They're just not any good. But you would think with college football now being a multi-billion-dollar industry, they would just pay these officials to be full-time officials, just like the NFL has. But these guys have jobs throughout the year, and they have to either quit their job or take time off from their job August through January to officiate football. But just think, if you paid them to be full-time officials, then February through July, early August, when there's no games going on, they can be watching film over and over and over again to learn the rules and see what they did wrong. But when you have a normal job 6 months out of the year, you don't have any free time to go back and watch and see what you did wrong, to go back and learn the rules. So August comes and you start officiating, things have changed, and you don't know because you've had no time to watch film and learn and read because you've been working. So they need to just hire full-time officials. Take the ones you have now and just make them full-time. And Darrell, you're right. There's many a big games this Saturday. I'm not sure which game you're referencing. I don't know who your team is, but there are many a big games this, not just Saturday, but Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, since it is rivalry weekend in the world of college football. But I just think it's sad that nothing gets done about it. The referees, I don't think should be talked about a whole lot. And you're a Gamecock fan, okay? Well, there is a big game this Saturday at noon between South Carolina and Clemson. I'd love to know your prediction. You ain't got to give it to me now, but sometime between now and Saturday in one of my videos, I'd love to know what your prediction is. I think it's going to be a close game. Either way, either team wins, won't surprise me. Whoever loses won't surprise me. But it sucks because, they're going to make mistakes because they're humans. It's always going to happen. But I hate it when coaches do dumb things and players do dumb things and we make them do press conferences talking about it. But when officials do dumb things and make a mistake, mess up, they're not asked about it. They ain't got to do an interview about it. They ain't got to do a press conference about it. And you hear the conference commissioner come out later on and just say, well, it happens. Well, we'll take care of that. In reality, that means nothing's going to happen because you're only paying these refs part-time because they've got a full-time job. And you're not going to fire them because you have to have officials. So what can you do to them? Nothing. But you can at least make them do an interview and go out there and say, hey, I messed up, or, I thought I did the right thing. There's too many coaches calling different plays. You're right, Darrell. But that's why I always respected Jim Joyce in the world of baseball. Years ago, there was a pitcher who was never any good before and was never any good after, but he had one perfect game going and was one out away from a perfect game. And there was a ground ball, I believe, to first base, and the pitcher covered the bag, and he got there, and the runner was out by this much, and the umpire caught him safe, and it messed up that pitcher's one moment to shine, and it wasn't even close. He was out, and the umpire caught him safe. Now, the next batter got out, game was over. Jim Joyce was the umpire that day. After the game, Jim Joyce, on his own merit, on his own accord, said, I want to talk. He did an interview, and he got out there, and he said, you know what? I messed up. He was out. I messed up that pitcher's perfect game. I messed up. I screwed up. He was out. So it didn't change the outcome of the game, and it didn't change the fact that it messed up the perfect game. And Jim Joyce was one of the best umpires baseball's ever seen, but he's human, and he messed up. But if he can go out there after umpiring for 100 years and just say, you know what, I want to talk. I want to let the world know I messed that up. And he did. Why can't other referees do that? It's up to the conference commissioners to fix this. And as long as the conference commissioners just sit back and do nothing about it, won't spend the money to have full-time officials, won't make them go out there and talk and admit to messing up, nothing is ever going to change. You remember Randy Johnson, baseball player. Yes, he played for the Expos, the Diamondbacks, the Mariners, and a couple other teams. He was 6'10", and he was a phenomenal pitcher. But the one thing he's known for was one year, I believe, in the All-Star game, throwing a pitch about the time a bird walked by, and the ball hit the bird, and you seen feathers go in the air. That's been 30 years ago or close to it, and you still to this day see that highlight when they're showing baseball highlights. But they caught him the big unit because of his height. I think he was actually 6'10.5", if I'm not mistaken. But he was in his dominant days of pitching when I started watching baseball back in the early to mid 90s. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What's the key to a great Thanksgiving dinner? Turkey. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.